Now, here is the crux of how this works within our office. It's a tough process. And when you look at 2,800 fields across 6 states, here's what I did this year. And it's going to be where Ed comes in just a minute and takes over and shows you how he could make my life a whole lot easier. Right now, a farmer or CCA, myself, selects an area of interest, usually a field boundary. We can get those boundaries sitting in a field, and I can draw them in sitting at the kitchen table, or they can be sent to me via a topo map or a faxed copy of a plat map or an FSA map. Some of our guys have shape files, and those are blessings. But, you know, I have told Ed the other day, you know, I have been given some topo maps and told good luck. You know, it's just been outlined, and that's tough. It's kind of looking through a haystack for a needle. It's very difficult to make sure you've got the right boundary. We do a lot of communication back and forth, picking up the phone or sending faxes back and forth or emails back and forth, trying to make sure that we have the right field for the farmer. We still fail at times and don't get the right field. I know that we did some sampling for a guy and his neighbor, and now his neighbor is involved in our project because we sampled his field. So it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy to get those boundaries in sometimes. We then have to set up a project file within our individual GIS software, which also takes time. GIS software doesn't come with all of the soils and roads and PLSS, at least the software that we use currently does not. So we have to go and find the repositories for that data and import those individual files. And sometimes those take hours to download. We then draw the boundaries, change projections, copy those projections if they were sent in a different shape file with a different projection into our current project file. We have to then change all the projections to a readable format to the imagery company, which we email or upload that to them, and then we wait for them to fly. When they're done, they download the imagery. The imagery comes as individual fields. It is not as a project. So that then requires us to copy and paste and put all of those images back into the GIS software, re-project those into the project, overlay our soils information in that area and any historic imagery to make sure we've aligned everything correctly. We then select points based on the dominant soil types and on that imagery. We change projections of the points and boundaries again so that they are reachable by the GPS unit. We download those waypoints to the GPS unit, send those GPS units to the samplers. They take the samples and mark waypoints. They then send them back to us, the individual GPS units. We download those waypoints so that we can QC them. We download the results from the lab. We put those back into the GIS software. We overlay the results with sampled waypoints. And finally, we're able to print and send the maps to CCAs and farmers. So you can see that from about the end of June, middle of July, till somewhere around the middle of November, this is what consumes our lives here at the Iowa Soybean Association within our group. It's a very tedious process, takes a lot of hours. It's very, very frustrating. There are a lot of areas within here that can go wrong when you're looking at different projections. Sometimes I've uploaded imagery or uploaded files with points and boundaries to the aerial imagery company, and for some reason or another the projection is off in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So you're having to pull that back, find that one problem, change that, fix it. Had a problem where we sent the GPS units. We got some new GPS units, sent those out to the field with waypoints. There was a default projection in the GPS unit that was different from the projection of the file. So when my sampler went to go collect samples, the nearest waypoint was like 350 miles away. So there's just a lot of room for error within our current process. So Ed and I have been having some conversations about how can we use the imagery, how can we use a more streamlined process to better manage projects, not just big projects, but even just farmer data. How can we streamline that process? How can we become good repositories of data and research on a given field so that we can help a farmer make the best decision possible? And I am not an expert. at the GeoAgro software. I hope to become before too long, but I know enough to know that when you look at this list here versus this list here of steps that would have to go through, that there are some things that could definitely be streamlined much easier. You know, the farmer and the CCA can select that area of interest right there on the screen, delineate the boundary into GeoAgro's GIS program. You can upload the boundary from there directly to the imagery company without having to change projections. Wait for that image, download it back in, toggle to turn on needed layers. They're already there. I don't have to go searching for a repository for an individual soil layer. Select points based on the predominant soil types. The CCA or sampler can actually download those points themselves. They can also help select points. Right now I sit in an office with an aerial image. A lot of those fields I have never walked. Now a CCA who has walked that field and is familiar with me can help educate me on where to select points, or can actually select the points themselves. They can take the samples, upload them back into the software, enter the results from the lab, or the lab can enter it directly. We can overlay that, and then we're done, and we're ready to share results with farmers. So there are a lot of things that could be streamlined through this process. Imagery and this management information and maps, they are powerful. There is a map and an image available for just about everything these days. You know, everything from yield maps and in-season tissue sampling, stand counts, soil sampling, crop scouting. We're getting finer resolutions. You know, there's a company now that claims that they can do stand counts from an aerial image that they get, and that's pretty powerful. Saves me a lot of time on the road if I choose to use that. Is not a substitute for going and being in a field with a farmer and getting to know that farm and that field for yourself, but it's nice to be able to look at some imagery over time and see how that relates. Crop scouting and monitoring, nutrient application, variable rate technology, the response to micronutrients, on-farm research trials that are being done on a farm, cropping history, management history, land use change over time, productivity maps, tile maps, bird's eye view of surrounding topography when I can't go out and walk a field to see how far it is from a stream or how the field lays. Looking at old conservation practices and new conservation practices, and then tracking energy usage on farm. And there is an endless number of other things that imagery can be used for. So that's what we do within the Iowa Soybean Association. It's how we use imagery. It's how we use the corn stalk nitrate sample protocol within a planning process. If you have any questions or need anything, Ed will have my contact information. You can find me on the web at the Iowa Soybean Association, and we would love to visit with you. And I'm going to turn it over to Ed now to continue with the imagery piece.